So in the film Wanda, there's a few ways that we can see that women are supposed to act, like according to society back then. It shows a few ways they're supposed to be acting in that time period, the 60s and 70s. And then it also shows at the end the woman going against the grain. So, a few things. The cinematography is very, very different from previous movies because this movie is supposed to be relatable. So the cinematography, if you notice, the cameras are kind of always a little bit, swaying. I wouldn't necessarily say it's shaking, but swaying is probably a better correct term to use for it because you could slowly see the camera like as if it's being held by somebody. So it feels sort of like a vlog kind of as they're following this woman throughout her life and she's being disrespected, and you see like all the downsides to her life, or being a woman specifically, the downsides to that. And then there's also like a lack of sound in some pretty serious situations, like when she sleeps with the first guy and he's trying to get outside of the room, but he's trying to sneak out quietly, and then she's like, wait, take me with you, I want to go with you. That's very important in showing and making sure that the emphasis is on how women were sort of just treated like an object. And that was kind of it. In the scene specifically, the man in the suits, has all his clothes on and he's trying to sneak out and get out of the hotel room, or wherever they are. He's trying to get out before she wakes up because it was kind of just like a one night stand thing, and that's it. And it's interesting because in the scene before that, he bought her a drink, so it kind of ties in together because he bought her a drink, slept with her, and then now he's trying to just get out. And then that scene specifically has no sound in it, so that's very useful in emphasizing how like sort of gross the practice was with men in that time, and even today how they kind of see women as just objects. And then in the last example I have, there's also the end scene of where she's in the car with another man. So she's with lots of men in this movie and jumping between jobs and whatnot, but she's with a man in the last scene in a car, and the man basically tries to make a move on her, and so she's getting raped at this point because you can kind of see the disgust in her face and she's not really into the whole thing. So at the end, she finally, you could see her like, analyze the situation. The man gets on her for a little bit, and then she eventually is like, I'm not gonna let this happen to me. So she starts pushing him off, and then there's a lot of resistance, and then they sort of get in a scuffle in the car, and then she eventually like hits him with her bag, and then she eventually opens the door, gets out, and you can see her, hurriedly just run off into the distance, and into like the jungle kind of. And that's very important because that's the one point where there was like a fighting back stance from her, because in the entire movie she was basically getting like thrown around, and most people were just kind of disrespectful to her, and they didn't really see her more than an object. That's all they really saw in her. So that scene's very important because she finally like is like, you know what, no, I'm not gonna let this happen to me, and she pushes off this guy, and then she moves on to with the rest of her life. So that scene is very important because it goes against what people thought women were back then, which was just, like I said before, objects. And in the whole movie, she's treated like that, but then in the end, she's finally like, no, that's not how I'm going to be treated. And she pushes the man off. So that's important. And also, another scene when she's walking, this is towards the first half of the movie, she's walking through like a city sort of, and there's like the man or the cameraman, obviously he's holding the camera, and you could feel it swaying, and she's sort of walking with her head down. That's very important to also recognize because it's showing it sort of like this is like daily life. Like it was sort of like a vlog type of style of recording. It wasn't really fake or like edited and altered in terms of like the filters or like the cutting. There wasn't any like crazy cutting or anything. It was very raw and simple, just to get across a point that she's being treated like a second class citizen just because she's a woman. And yeah, so that's the examples I had and scenes of her fighting back, and the movie showing women fighting against the societal norms. Thank you.